The story of Spur starts off like a joke, but ends with an emotional punchline. A Jew, a Greek, and a Russian are driving to Cape Town, and they're about to crash. So the Jew says to the Greek,
"Arthur, are you awake?" And he woke up with a start, and he turned the wheel, and as the car went over the edge, I thought, this is it, I'm going to die.
The Jew is 22-year-old Alan Ambor. Should he survive, he'll discover Spur. His Greek bestie is named Arthur. His uncle is the founder of Steers. Panicking in the back seat is a Russian damsel in distress.
We tumbled nose over tail 3 or 4 times. I got out. I saw Arthur lying there. His fiancée, Mina, was saying, oh my goodness, only she didn't use the word goodness. I pulled Mina out because I smelled petrol. I sat on this whitewashed rock, and all of a sudden, in the bowels of the car, a tape recorder clicked on, and the Beatles started singing, Michelle, my belle.
These are words that go together well.
If they died that night, South Africa would lose a taste for life they never knew existed. Alan didn't believe in fate, but he did have faith in chance. He forever holds on to those sweaty 1960s nights at Steers, when it was still called Seven Steer, hailed as Johannesburg's first steakhouse. After long waitering shifts, Alan, Arthur, and an Alfa Romeo would grab life by the chunks at the Greek taverna off Loveday Street. They were the offspring of immigrants who escaped occupation and the Holocaust. In Alan's words, they were a new breed, freed by fate to define fortunes. And, as luck would have it, Seven Steer was operated by Arthur's uncle, George Halamandres, who many believe is the original founder of Spur. A fact Alan refutes strongly to this day.
Can I clarify? The old man, George Halamandres Sr., mentored me and been so helpful in many ways. Their uncle had opened a business with a partner called the Golden Spur in Rosebank in Johannesburg. And he then sold it to another man who'd run it into the ground. By the time I started getting involved, it had become defunct.
This was the world that created Spur in the 1960s. But you have to wonder, what was it like going out for dinner in the pro-white glory days of South Africa? Because it's sad to admit, for a while, those people ate and left no crumbs. This part of the story is for those who weren't there, and especially for those who weren't allowed. We've booked you a table in the whites-only part of town for a nice, warm meal. Let's talk money.
The Golden City, South Africa's Johannesburg. 70 years have brought a small township to rank with the world's richest cities, and it's still growing fast.
The 1960s was a golden decade of economic growth, low inflation, and manufacturing booms. But something was missing. There were no franchises at all of any kind, never mind restaurants. And now we were about to be introduced to 3, all food related. So, what's on the menu? Milky Lane opened in the previous decade, a Hillbrow heyday favorite, but it wasn't a franchise yet. Its owner, also Uncle George. As for his 7 Steer House of Steaks in Johannesburg, he's about to flip it and try something completely new, called Steers, the first ever franchise in South Africa.
Arthur, the one nephew, he got married and they left the country. Eventually, all their steakhouses closed and were replaced by burger ranches. Some Greek cousins bought one of the almost defunct burger ranches, changed its name to Steers. And you know where Steers are today.
The second to join is this new thing in Durban called Wimpy. Invented in Indiana, America, licensed to a British tea company, and sold to Bakers Limited, South Africa, which was eventually sold to Uncle George. Then there was Spur. Alan had a single window of opportunity, Cape Town.
And then decided at age 22 to look around in Cape Town, which I'd been on holiday at for a couple of times. Couldn't find anything. Cape Town today is a metropolis compared to what it used to be. It was a dorp. It was a town. It certainly wasn't even a city, even though it might have been big enough to be called one.
According to him, there was only one other steakhouse, called the Wooden Shoe, which served a signature dish of steak with slices of watermelon and orange, chips, and a basting sauce that Alan recalls as tantalizing for the sophisticated palate. But Alan wanted to cook for the masses, and so in 1967, Alan's father delivered on a promise he made: to double Alan's savings. With a total of 4,000 rand, or roughly $500,000 in today's money, Alan invested into the very first Spur premises, right across Newlands Stadium.
First Spur is, of course, Golden Spur in Newlands.
I worked ridiculous hours because we had nobody to help us open the business. There came a time one night when I actually thought, no, I've got to get out of this business, it's killing me. The next morning I had 4 hours sleep, I was fine. Nothing came first, not even my marriage. It doesn't matter who suffers as long as it's not the business. It was a joy. We were blessed to be so busy, to be so enjoyed by people because we delivered the goods.
So Spur in Bellville, Silver Spur, is the third Spur.
Correct.
And the second one is in Sea Point. That's the one that's there in the hotel.
They were tough days, but I loved what I was doing. You know, I think that's the one thing I can say to anybody who might listen to this. It's no good attaching yourself to a grindstone which you hate.
But there was a problem: the equity ban. The world slammed the door on us for racism, but American capitalism left it wide open. Uncle George, Wimpy, and Alan had some new competition.
I'd like to buy the world a home.
Welcome to the 1970s. Ignoring conventional wisdom, KFC would hit the street with our favorite 21-piece bucket for less than 5 rand. But not everyone was as keen as the Colonel. So, how does fake McDonald's sound? Time to go to Gauteng and ask the question, am I loving it? The gracefully titled Mac Munch is a special breed of vaporwave capitalism. Menu items that would turn Ronald into a sad clown include the Mac Chicken Meal, the Double Muncher, and tea. Suffice to say, the most mouth-watering thing back then were the prices. The most expensive steak on Spur's menu,
a filet mignon, was R1.50.
Yes. It was the equivalent of $250 today. That's how sad capitalism is.
As the idea of franchise restaurants grew, Spur wouldn't just be fighting off fast food joints. There were several new family-friendly offerings, and Spur was burning the competition alive. By this time, Mike's Kitchen had become instant future nostalgia. Captain Derego's turned on the gas, but wouldn't franchise until the 90s. And a place called Squire's Loft did what many South Africans would eventually succumb to: become an Australian expat. It's the reason why you can enjoy a lekker boerewors in several Strya locations to this day. Then came the 1980s. Saddles gave us their best sizzle, but any signs of life were extinguished in 1986 when Spur was listed on the stock exchange with 43 franchised locations. The Indians had conquered the Cowboys. 60 years later, we can only imagine what Alan felt a year after his retirement when the very first Spur closed down, fighting the hysteria of a global virus. Alan believed that people didn't come to a restaurant to eat. They do that at home. They came to a restaurant to celebrate life. And no generation understood that better than the 90s, who birthed a billion voices begging for one thing: take us back.
Feels like
I used to be Chico the Clown.
Those spicy doughy balls that were in the Salad Valley, that came to the table by the plate.
feels like
So
While you're sitting waiting outside, you got a free glass of wine or two while you were waiting to get a chair inside, which was great.
There are gateways to moments in time, lost in the smoke rings of hot rock steaks and lady fillets. Whatever you remember, the rest of the world will never understand these things. You could combine all the kilometers on those destination signs, and it couldn't feel any further away.
Many years ago, you couldn't have any drinks on a Sunday, but the Spur allowed you to drink something if you ordered something. Thank Alan for allowing us to do that.
So look what I found is a Spur menu from the 90s. Oh, I remember this thing. I love that thing.
The 90s was Spur's golden hour. Their eagle rise was over the backdrop of newfound freedom.
We had a Spur on North Beach, which was our first Spur in Durban, where 95 World Cup, we had the England team stayed in the garden courts, so we met all of them, the New Zealanders, the Springboks, just good fun, and they're just normal people, just like us.
If the movie that is South Africa ended here, Spur could easily be the last shot for the ending credits. All that changed in the 2000s. Remember Uncle George? He started a company called Famous Brands, and it's become a stock market giant.
What the fricadelle?
You might not have heard of them, but you have eaten at their restaurants. You already know about Steers and Milky Lane.
What does it take to be the best?
Later on, Uncle George would purchase Wimpy,
I love it when you talk foreign.
Debonair's, Fisherways, Tasha's.
But it wasn't an easy journey. When I started in 2005, I didn't really have the money. I just had a really big dream.
Mug and Bean, Bobotello, Juicy Lucy, Mythos, Lupa.
Lupa was founded in Hillcrest, and it was based on the food of Rome.
Paul, Mr. Biggs.
You've got very big brands in the form of KFC and Chicken Licken in South Africa. Right now, we're under no illusions. I mean, I refer to this as a David and Goliath type approach, and we're the David, and we're behaving like the David, very much under the radar screen, but quietly confident.
Famous Brands wasn't the only one threatening Alan's empire. Waiting on the horizon was Taste Holdings, who would bring us Domino's, St. Elmo's, Starbucks and scooters.
I am King Pie.
King Pie, which is owned by Bidvest, and many more, including McDonald's, 145 of which belong to Cyril Ramaphosa. The struggle might have been over, but the big business war had begun. Alan went on the attack.
I hate the money side. I'm financially rather inept, which is not a really good confession to make, but is absolutely true.
The lesson for brands is what?
You got to live your payoff line. You got to live your ethos.
I get that, Alan Amble,
you can't
but
pretend
how?
it.
What are the small things that you have to do as a brand to make sure that you're doing it?
Look after your customer, number one. Look after your customer, number two. And I won't repeat it because it's getting
I think
tedious.
it's got customer in the sentence somewhere.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, this is what I call lekker. A juicy Spur meal and carrots. How's that, Bobby?
Spur infiltrated Africa, Australia, Ireland and England.
We're at Spur Steak and Grill.
I'm actually in Dublin, Ireland. I am at Spur Steak and Grill. I'm taking on their 64-ounce steak challenge.
We are at the Golden Spa here at the Southern Sun in Westlands, Nairobi.
Fighting alongside was a new partner, Panarottis. The main difference moving forward wasn't to beat the competition, but to buy the competition. Enter Spur Corporation, Alan's answer to Famous Brands. This was during the era they started serving breakfast and installing Sony PlayStation 2s. And while children were button mashing Sly Cooper, Alan and his board of businessmen were traveling to KwaZulu-Natal to purchase 60% of John Dory's Fish and Grill.
Spur's already got itself a name. We can only follow in that direction, but then also it's up to the franchisee to follow in that direction. Spur's not going to do it for you.
Again, we're a conservative bunch of guys, and we'll watch it very, very carefully. But your dominant player will always be our South African market and our growth in our South African revenue line.
In 2006, they would pass the 300 restaurant mark, and in 2010, turnover exceeded 3 billion rand for the first time.
Spur Steak Ranch is increasing turnover by 11%. Panarotti's Pizza, that was up by 5.3%. And then John Dory's, a gain of 11.3%.
In 2013, they buy Hussar Grill. 2015,
they've taken a 50% stake in a thing called Rocker Mamas. I don't know if you've seen that.
2016, they established Casabella. And 2018 is followed up with a stake in Nikos. They also started investing into behind-the-scenes businesses, including sauce and decor manufacturing, a learning academy, property and financial services, as well as a 120 million rand meat processing plant.
They said it looks like it's going to be the coldest winter in memory. Well, how can you tell? The Indians are collecting a shitload of firewood.
The 2010s was the decade Alan would call his last. Financially, it would be their biggest, but socially, its most embarrassing.
You can't go on the whole day.
Trust me, I can.
Some of it might have been their own fault.
Say cheese.
Hillbilly rock, hillbilly roll, stand in line and away we go.
Hello everyone, my name is Michelle and I'm going to show you how to do the hillbilly rock fun dance. Hop and shake, shake, shake and shake. Or you can do the chicken. 1, 2, 3, hop. 1, 2, 3, hop and chicken.
Hey, Destiny ready? It's your Spur birthday song. Oh yeah.
Always making people laugh with your lack of coordination. Thus a worthy candidate for this birthday song nomination.
Another year is come and gone. I can't believe how the time she flies.
Thank you, Mommy. And thank you, Spur.
It wasn't the money. I've never been a breadhead. I really haven't. I don't know much about that side of the business, but I knew about the creative side. I knew about looking after people because it was my natural instinct.
If time's a cruel mistress, what came next was far more vicious. The first major media scandal went as quickly as it came. There were a few others that peaked out, but nothing Spur's PR team couldn't handle.
Every child that I have to bury because of the guns that you have smuggled in. I pray that you listen to what God says to you today.
And then came a new nightmare. A boiling pot stuffed with dynamite. And the ones to switch on the stove was a new woke internet generation. The major criticism? Spur was being called out for using Native American Indians as a fetish to sell food. The pot was bubbling, but no real boom yet. And then?
Yes. Hey, I'm looking through the window and she's hitting my child against the head.
Look here, such a big man, bigger pudding.
I'm telling you, you could do something. I saw you push like
We all know who was wrong here, and it wasn't Spur. The question is, what did this all mean for Spur?
Well, that's the video that's got most of the country's tongues wagging. But is Spur's banning of the patron a cop-out, or could the company have done more against a repeat offender?
With technology today, they got it through to me very quickly. And to say that I was flabbergasted would be an understatement. We have a responsibility to set for the next generation.
I'm a father, I'm a parent to a child. The woman was sitting when the conversation started, he was standing, and immediately he placed himself in a position of power.
To every parent watching this, put yourself in his shoes. Your child has just been punched in the face. What do? You address it with the other parent. You walk up and you go, you know what, sort your son out, which is exactly what he did. And the response from the other parent was, go F yourself. Pause for effect. When somebody's evidently irate, you don't poke the bear. Seriously? Seriously? Seriously.
The fire left in the wake of all these events is still ongoing. Following Alan's retirement in 2019, the company went on a rebranding exercise, which split audiences alongside the racial debate.
Imagine being so privileged and having so little issues and problems that the Spur logo offends you.
I kind of feel like it's my responsibility and my mission to be whatever part of the change in this country I can be.
It is insensitive, it's culturally sensitive, Spur needs to do better, they need to change it. How's about you just shut up?
I am a product of white privilege. I'm a product of a system that gives white men better opportunities.
Is Spur wrong for using Indians? Jared Sinman said this. Ask yourself how you, as a South African, maybe even a Zulu South African, would feel walking into a restaurant to find pasty British teenagers dressed up as Zulu warriors, grillers with blackface, and kids playing in plastic kraals, surrounded by stylized pictures of Shaka and Dingaan.
If you are expecting Native people to be running around in leather and feathers, it's hard to think of them in the contemporary moment.
Yo, bro, play that Indian music. Boy, this is the wrong Indian music.
My name is Eagle Blackbird. I'm from Wapu Island First Nation. And I create videos around the stereotypical concept that people have of us as Indigenous people. Us as Natives, we joke about this stereotype, this concept all the time in the movie industry. It's a part of our humor. I care for my community. It's not something that needs to be forgotten about. It's something that needs to be taught to our youth.
But don't they have a spur where they come from?
No.
Shame.
What's the lesson here? Do we stop eating at Spur? You should answer that for yourself. If the latest financial statements are anything to go by, the answer is clear. Spur Corporation's turnover exceeded 10 billion rand in 2024. Like the Americans in the 1960s, you have to admit, turning a blind eye is profitable. The Indian chief still remains, as much as the stock price goes up and the portfolio of brand restaurants become bigger. For us, the consumer, the result is still the same. The restaurant is where culture concludes. It's where the finale of your life plays out. It's where you go after work and after you've met the love of your life. It's where you meet your best friends and celebrate success in that new outfit you bought. New South Africa might have been born in 1994, but the story of all the things we've come to love in pop culture and capitalism came before. And it starts like this. In the beginning, there was Steers, Wimpy, and Spur.
It's a strange, strange world we live in, Master Jack.
In today's conventional yoga wisdom, when people sit, they tend to slouch. When they sit in front of computers, they tend to slouch. And the important thing is to recognize how important the spine is.
This channel knows how to bring back nostalgia. Thanks, how would you build it? We don't really see ourselves as nostalgia per se, but we definitely enjoy explaining what South Africans love and hate. You really took us somewhere slow. Please do both dub and crazy. Thank you. Spoiler alert, Anya's already been working on the script. You're going to have to give us some time on dub because sadly, unlike YoTV, KTV and Crazy, dub doesn't have the same amount of footage that any of those other properties do. We need an episode on Backstage. Firstly, where's the archive? Well, it does belong to ETV and not SABC, so it's probably in a better state. Secondly, we definitely do need to dive more into ETV's portfolio. Where did you get all this footage? Well, wouldn't you like to know?